I'm not starting at the beginning. Okay, so in addition to cholent this week, I also brought Tums. So if anyone gets heartburn, like myself, you could. All right.
Okay.
So
and there's no mask mandate?
You don't.
I haven't been here for a while.
There's no mask mandate. No, there's no mask mandate.
We went a day earlier than Murphy. Well, we're Jewish, so the Jewish day starts at night. So really, Friday's mask mandate ends right now. It's a question if it's Shkia right now, but this is the best parsha in the Torah. The reason that it's the best parsha is because of my bar mitzvah parsha. So it's actually good because I was supposed to have, I think, the week before Parshas Naso, but I got pushed off because there was another kid who had a bar mitzvah, and last week was like the longest parsha in the Torah, so that worked out well for me.
Yeah, that did work
but
out. That was the longest portion last week. But it's not so bad because like the last Aliyah, really everything repeats itself over and over again.
Your birthday's coming up?
Yeah.
Okay.
Don't ask him how long ago his bar mitzvah was.
Yeah.
His birthday is.
My bar mitzvah was about 10 years ago.
When's your birthday?
What?
When's your birthday?
I don't know why Steve's laughing. My birthday is June 11th. Coming up.
Oh, my birthday's not far ahead of yours. It's June 20th, Father's Day.
Nice. Yeah, kind of not into birthdays anymore. It was good till about 18, 19. But it's actually 21.
Right.
Hey, welcome. Hey, some cholent, some Tums.
Are you Hebrew birthdays?
What?
Hebrew birthdays?
Daled Sivan.
Right over here, when you reserve
Daled
your seat.
Tums.
Nice. All right, I'm on the part. All right, so we're going to talk about Pesach Sheni. Anyone here ever heard of Pesach Sheni? Everyone's heard of Pesach, right?
It's like a second chance.
Yes, that's what we're going to talk about. So Pesach, we know, is the holiday where we eat matzah, and we eat maror, and we tell the story of leaving Egypt. But there's something else we do that we may not be familiar with because we don't. Unfortunately, now we don't have a temple. But when we had a temple in Jerusalem, we would do something. We would bring the Pesach sacrifice, the Paschal lamb. Every Jewish person had to be part of a group that brought a lamb to the temple or the Mishkan, tabernacle, and it would be slaughtered by the Kohen, and it would be eaten as part of the Seder. That was the mitzvah of Korban Pesach, the Pesach sacrifice, and that was a very, very important part of Passover. It was an integral part of Passover that we don't have anymore because we don't have the temple, and hopefully when the temple is rebuilt soon, we will have that mitzvah again. So there's a special mitzvah of Pesach Sheni. If someone was unable to bring the Pesach sacrifice, he has an opportunity to bring it a month later. He has a makeup date. We don't have this by other mitzvahs. We have this by Pesach Sheni. Let's read a little bit in the Torah how this mitzvah came about. We're going to learn the way this mitzvah came about is different than many other mitzvahs in the Torah. So read some of the verses. We won't read the whole thing, but it says, okay. Vaydaber Hashem Moshe b'midbar Sinai b'shana hashenis. So this is about the Pesach. So Hashem spoke to Moshe in the desert in the second year about bringing the Korban Pesach. The Jewish people should bring the Pesach in its time. I know I'm reading a little fast. It's a bad habit. There was a mitzvah. Now the 15th of Nisan is the day we celebrate Pesach. The Pesach sacrifice was brought the day before in the afternoon. So you would Erev Pesach, right? If you didn't have enough to do already preparing for the Seder, you also had to bring this lamb the eve before Pesach to the temple, and it would be slaughtered, and you would eat it at the Seder. He told them to do the Pesach. The Jewish people brought the Pesach sacrifice on the 14th day in the desert. Like everything that Hashem commanded, as Moshe kenasu b'nei Yisrael, so did the Jewish people according to the way they were commanded. Vayhi anashim asher hayu tmeim l'nefesh adam v'lo yochel lasos haPesach b'yom hahu. Now there were people, they were impure, spiritually impure. We know that if certain things make a person impure, if he comes in contact with a dead body, other things, but specifically for the Pesach, these people had come in contact with a dead body. And therefore, they were unable to bring the Pesach sacrifice, because to go into the temple, you have to be spiritually pure. You can't be spiritually impure. Now, what spiritual impurity is, and all that, that's a discussion for another time. So these people, they were not able to bring the Pesach sacrifice. Vayikru lifnei Moshe. They came in front of Moshe. V'lifnei Aaron bayom hahu. And in front of Aaron on that day. V'yomru ha'anashim ha'hema. These people said, Anachnu tmeim l'nefesh adam. We are impure. Why should we lose out to not be able to bring the Pesach sacrifice with the other Jewish people? He says, let me go ask God, and we'll see what God has to say. So these people were upset. We didn't have the opportunity to bring a Pesach. So Moshe says, okay, let me ask God. Hashem spoke to Moshe, saying, speak to the Jewish people, saying, a person, if he will be impure, or he'll be far away during the Pesach holiday, and the second month, a month later, they should bring the Korban Pesach, the Pesach sacrifice, and they should eat it with matzah and mar, and the verses go on to say the other laws of the Pesach sacrifice. So, you have here, people were upset that they couldn't do the mitzvah. They go to Moshe, saying, what did we do wrong? Why should we lose out? Moshe says, okay, let me ask God. God says, they're right. Give them a second chance to do the mitzvah. So, Rav Gedalia Shor asks a question here. Rav Gedalia Shor, again, we've quoted several times, and just the Benalipin connection. His nephew was the rabbi at Sons of Israel for many years, my childhood rabbi, so I feel a special connection to him. But Rav Gedalia Shor asks, if a person, let's say, is sick, can't get out of bed, and you can't go to davening in the morning, does God hold you accountable for that? No. There's a rule in the Torah called Onus Rachmana Patre. If something's beyond your control, and you can't fulfill a mitzvah, you are not held accountable for that. No big deal. So he says, what was the thing here? These people were spiritually impure. There were circumstances beyond their control, and they couldn't bring the Pesach. What is this whole thing they were asking? Lama Nigara, like, what did we do wrong? What's the big deal? Okay, you didn't do anything wrong, but sometimes there's circumstances beyond your control, and you can't fulfill the mitzvah. So what is going on here? Right? Like for the past year, for example, for Corona, I wasn't in shul for a year. Many of us weren't in shul for a year. Was that our fault? Right? You couldn't go to shul. You didn't want to get for those that hold that the coronavirus is a real thing, you couldn't go to shul. I'm kidding. I believe coronavirus is a real thing. I'm joking. But we didn't go to shul. It wasn't, it was circumstances beyond our control. Hashem's going to be upset with us, that we really couldn't go. It was dangerous. So what's going on here? So he cites here a story from the Zohar. It's a very interesting story. I really want to meet this person who the story happened to. So the story is a very short story. So the kid, there were Tanaim that were walking along. Tanaim were the rabbis from the times of the Talmud, from the times of the Mishnah. So we're talking about at the end of the period of the Second Temple, a little bit after that. Pretty holy people, very, very holy. You've heard some of the names: Rabbi Akiva, Rav Shimon Bar Yochai, people like that. Rav Yochanan ben Zakkai, very, very holy people from the holiest people in Jewish history. It doesn't say who they were specifically, but a kid runs into them, and the kid says to them, "I can tell from your faces that you didn't say Shema this morning." That's what the kid says. I really want to know who this kid was. So the rabbis said to him, "Well, you're right. Actually, we didn't say Shema this morning, but we have a valid excuse." It says we were being Isaac in Pidyon Shvuyim. Pidyon Shvuyim is rescuing a Jewish captive. There's a special mitzvah that if a Jewish person is kidnapped, or it used to happen very often. Pirates actually used to do this a lot. Even up in the Middle Ages, it was very common. They would kidnap Jewish people because they knew the Jewish community would always pay ransom to get the captives back. So these
is that like a blood libel?
It's a little different. The blood libel was something made up by Christians falsely claiming that Jews were killing Christian babies to use their blood to make matzah. And you should know, people still believe it today. They say, besides the Arabs who make it up, they say that many Jews didn't do it, but there were definitely sects of Jews who did it back then, which is totally ridiculous. I've seen people say that. Very common. Someone, my father's coworker many years ago said, "You guys still put blood in your matzahs?" Like insane. But this was like people would go around. This was more of a money making scheme, to capture Jews and then ransom them. So these Tanaim said, you're right. We didn't say Shema, but we have a valid reason because we were rescuing these captives. So that was the story. So he says, you see from there that did these rabbis do the right thing by not saying Shema? Opinion? Should they have said Shema? Should they not have said Shema? They were busy rescuing captives.
What it take the say Shema?
They couldn't. They were so busy. They were on the phone. They had to call this. They had to call the Undersecretary of State. They had to run over here to call this guy. They had to call that Askin, this Askin. They didn't have a second.
They couldn't.
They weren't allowed to.
Right, he's right. They weren't allowed to. There's a rule called Osik b'mitzvah pater min mitzvah. If you're involved in one mitzvah, you don't stop to do another one. The whole morning, they were saving a guy's life. He probably would have been killed by these bandits or these Roman soldiers whoever captured the Jews. So of course they shouldn't have said Shema. But nevertheless, this kid, who apparently was a spiritual kid, could tell on their face that there was something lacking. He could tell that there was something wrong that they did. So Gedaliah Shor says, you see that even though they did the right thing and they followed the halacha, there was a reason that God brought about that they would have to miss Shema. Meaning, they were faced with a choice. Should we say Shema or should we continue rescuing this Jewish person's life? So the answer is, obviously, you should rescue this Jewish person's life. But why did Hashem make it that it had to come about that you had to do that by not reciting Shema? Obviously, there's something lacking in your Torah observance that Hashem made that circumstance come about to you. That's what he says. And he brings another proof to this case. It says, the Gemara in Megillah, on 16b, it says, V'gadol Yehudim v'rotzei l'rov echav, l'rov echav v'lo l'chol echav, that Mordechai he was beloved by most of his brothers, by most of the people. What does that mean, most of the people? He just saved the whole Jewish people. So it says, the Gemara says, Malamed shepir shemivanu mikta Sanhedrin. He says that some of the Sanhedrin, some of the Jewish high court, separated themselves from Mordechai. Because, Amar Rav Yosef, Malamed shepir shemivanu mikta Sanhedrin, Amar Rav Yosef, Gadol Talmud Torah Yosef Mashalos Nefashos. Because learning Torah is greater than saving people's lives. So Mordechai, who had to save the entire Jewish people, but in the end of the day, he had to stop learning because of it. He wasn't able to dedicate himself to learning. Now, Mordechai, did he do the right thing? Saving the Jewish people? Yeah, of course, he had to. But the fact that Hashem made it come about that he had to stop his learning in order to do that showed that there was something on a minute level lacking, if we could say. We obviously can understand Mordechai was, we are ants compared to who Mordechai was, but there was something that wasn't totally perfect with Mordechai that happened. So some of the people in the Sanhedrin separated from him. Now, as an aside, it's very interesting. The Gemara is saying that learning Torah is greater than saving people's lives. Now, that doesn't mean if we were learning here and there was somebody outside having a heart attack, that doesn't mean we would continue learning. We would obviously call 911. That's the halacha. But the spiritual impact that our Torah learning has and the schar we get when we're studying Torah, what we're doing right now, is greater than the reward and the spiritual impact, it seems, than saving that person's life. But so the law is, obviously, you stop, you have to save somebody. But the spiritual impact of learning Torah is greater. So from the fact that it came about that Mordechai had to stop studying Torah to save the Jewish people showed there was something lacking. So
one of the lacking be with the people, not him, because he's like they're the ones that need saving.
But why did he have to be the one saving them? It could have been another rabbi. It could have been somebody else. So since it came about him specifically, it was his niece that became the queen, and he was involved with the whole story. We see that there was a chisaron in him.
Could it be that he was on the highest level, that he had to be the one that took charge of his health save?
I mean, it seems from the Gemara that no, it seems that way. Yeah. You seem bothered by this. You don't like it.
No, I like it because
okay.
It's imperfect. It's like the Supreme Court. They have the majority opinion.
The Supreme Court is definitely imperfect.
Well, right, but they have the minority opinion is also valid. So both opinions matter, but we go with majority. So
right.
That's how it seems like it goes about. We also reflect on the other point of view too.
Right.
As having validity. I like
right.
that.
So, but based on this concept that even though when something comes about to the person, the Tanaim, that they weren't able to say Shema, and Mordechai that he had to save the Jewish people, he says that even though, and for us, for the past year, we couldn't daven shul, even though we didn't do anything wrong, Mordechai did the right thing, the Tanaim did the right thing, we did the right thing by not coming to shul, he says there was still something lacking. And he says with this concept, that's why the people here, when it came to Pesach Sheni, they said Lama Nigara. He said they examined themselves. According to one explanation, why were they impure? Why were they tameh? Anyone know? They were carrying Yosef's bones from Egypt to Israel. They examined all of their actions. They said there is nothing that we've done that is wrong. We don't have any lacking here. There's no reason that it should have come about that we're not able to bring the Pesach. So they said, Lama Nigara. Why do we lose out? And that's why Rashi says, Magazlin Tzchus al Yedei Zakai. Hashem was giving them a test. He wanted to see what would their reaction be when they weren't able to bring the Pesach sacrifice. Would they just say, yeah, okay, whatever, less work for me, I save $400, I don't have to buy a sheep. I don't know what's the going rate for a sheep now? Yeah. No, it's not your, just dogs and cats? Right. There's I think on Ike's Lane you can buy sheep if you want, right off Taylor Mills Road. Also, Tennant Road has a few sheep between there. But was that going to be the reaction? That good, we don't have to buy a sheep, we don't have to shut the base of Mikdash? Or were they going to say, no, we lost out, we want this chance to serve Hashem? So Hashem was testing them. He wanted the commandment, whole new commandment in the Torah came about because the Jewish people said, who were Tameh, they examined themselves and we didn't do anything wrong. We didn't deserve this to happen to us. Anas Rahman Patre. I understand that if there were circumstances beyond our control, we don't have to do the mitzvah, but there's no reason that you should have made it come about. We didn't do anything wrong. So he says, Hashem was testing them to see if they would come forward and say, Lama Nigara, why do we deserve this? What did we do wrong? And through their righteousness, they merited to get in the Torah this whole new commandment which came about through their asking. And that is obviously a lesson that we could all take. So I mentioned the past year of Corona, we couldn't go to shul. How do we feel? So we say, whew, good. I don't have to get up this morning. I can be in sweatpants all day, and I can daven at home at 9 o'clock. I don't have to get up for the 6:45 JLC minyan. Or we say, I wish I could go to shul. I wish I could go daven with the minyan, say, Amen Yehesh Me'Rabba. It's a test. We can test our own, we don't have to share here, but to ask ourselves what our reaction was, we can know how where we're holding spiritually. And now when we realize that doing a mitzvah, it's not just like, some people view religion, not just Jews, but everybody, religion's like a nice thing. On Mondays I have yoga, on Tuesdays I go to I go walk at the beach, and on Wednesdays I go to the temple or church or the mosque or the wherever. It's just like another nice thing to have in my life. So do we view mitzvahs like that, or no? God put us here for a reason, and mitzvahs are the whole point of our lives. We're trying to do mitzvahs so that we get close to Hashem, and that's the whole reason we were created. So we shouldn't view religion and Torah and mitzvahs as just like, it's a nice addition to my life. I mean, that's obviously better than nothing. But the real thing that we're shooting for, which is very difficult, right? I was just learning Derech Hashem I had a Derech Hashem shiur last night, and it says that we are in a total, we're a physical world, in a material world, so to say. We're material people in a material world. And it's hard to, bring out that spiritual side, but that is the true goal, to make the spiritual side the focus of our lives. And obviously, little by little, when we take step by step, we can get there. Okay, so somebody mentioned Lashon Hara. So that was one topic, Pesach Sheni. Oh, any questions or comments on Pesach Sheni before we move on? Okay. So as I was making fun of Darren and threatening his job, what is it?
It wasn't from the war against Molech that they began something?
Was there? I don't know. Is there an opinion like that? It could be. I don't know. I just know there's an opinion that says they were carrying the bones of Moshe. Such? Is there a shita? I don't know. I'll look into it.
Bones of Moshe?
What?
It says bones of Moshe.
No, the bones of Yosef. I said Moshe? I meant Yosef. Bones of Yosef. Atzmas Yosef. Okay. So Lashon Hara. Let's talk some Lashon Hara. Page. Dad jokes. Page.
I'm out of here.
Page. That's good. Reaction. That's what the Chavetz Chaim says to do. But I'm just kidding. We're not going to talk. We're not going to talk Lashon Hara. We will talk about Lashon Hara.
About
Lashon Hara. So what was the case here? That's on page 794. We'll just read a few psukim. As you mentioned before, Miriam and Aaron. Let's see, was this really Lashon Hara what they said? Vaytadaber Miriam v'Aaron b'Moshe. Miriam and Aaron said about Moshe, al odos ha'isha ha'kushis, about the Cushite women, Cushite, however you pronounce it. Asher lakach ki isha kushis lakach, because it was a Cushite woman that he took. Vayomru harak ach Moshe dibra Hashem halo gambano dibra reishma Hashem. Moshe was not with his wife once he spoke to God. He separated from his wife. So Miriam and Aaron also spoke to God. They did not separate from their spouses. So they said, do we not also speak to God that we don't separate from our spouses? Moshe, why is he doing that? Okay. Vayish Moshe anav mod Hashem. Moshe was exceedingly humble. Mikol ha'adam asher al pnei adama, from every person that was on the earth. Vayomer Hashem tisam al Moshe vel Aaron vel Miriam tzu shloshem. Okay, so I can read that. Right, shloshem el oel moed ve'etzu shloshem. So now then Hashem calls in Miriam and Aaron and says to them, I don't like what you said about Moshe, and Hashem got angry, and they got punished, and that was it. That was Lashon Hara. So there are, we all know there's a famous Sefer Chafetz Chaim, if you haven't learned it, many, many times. I suggest you learn it many, many times. It's very important. Talk about people learn halacha l'maisa, practical halacha. They want to know how to daven, how to put on tefillin, things that come up every day. Speaking Lashon Hara comes up pretty much one of the most common halachic questions I think that come up, and probably one of the areas of halacha that people, including myself, don't know as well as we should. So there are 31 prohibitions associated with Lashon Hara. Right? If you go to McDonald's on the way home, don't do this. But if you go, you could violate. You have a non-kosher hamburger, you violate one prohibition. You speak Lashon Hara, you could violate 31 prohibitions. So it's a lot more serious in certain respects.
Choose your poison.
Choose your poison. Right? If you speak Lashon Hara in McDonald's, then you really got a problem. But actually, do you know there was let me see if I can tell this story over without saying names. I think I can do it. There was a person that I know that started going to you might know him, that started going to an Orthodox synagogue because I think he saw his Reform rabbi eating at McDonald's, and he said, I eat at McDonald's, that's fine, but having a rabbi that eats at McDonald's, that I couldn't handle. So he started going to an Orthodox synagogue. Anyway, one of the mitzvahs...
Did he actually stop eating at McDonald's?
Did the rabbi or did this person?
The person.
Oh.
I
don't know, actually. He might have stopped and then gone back, I'm not sure.
Call him.
What?
Call him right now.
Yeah, we'll invite him to the shiur. Okay. So one of those 31, they're not all prohibitions. Some of them are positive commandments. So I should say 31 mitzvos in the Torah. One of them is from this verse. I would like to read the Chafetz Chaim, what he says inside. So, overall, mitzvahs say, someone who speaks Lashon Hara violates this positive commandment. Remember, we have to remember what Hashem did to Miriam. Miriam was inflicted with tsaras, with a leprosy type of disease, b'derech. We are commanded to always remember the punishment that God gave to Miriam, the tzadekis, the righteous woman, the prophetess. Now let's analyze exactly what Miriam did here. She spoke about her brother. Okay, it was her brother. Asher ahavaso kenafsha, she loved him. She raised him. She risked her life to save him, right? She put him in the basket. At the time, they were commanded to throw the Jewish boys into the river. She saved them, put them on a basket. And so we're talking about they loved each other. There was no animosity between Miriam and Moshe after the fact either. They loved each other. Vihilo dibrim pinganuso, and she didn't even say anything that was technically bad. Elamasha hishvasa also l'shar neviim. She just said that he's a prophet like us. Moshe was a higher level prophet. She didn't say anything negative about him. She just said he's the same as us. He's a prophet. That's not bad. That's just same as us. You're not saying something negative like the guy is he's a jerk or he's arrogant. Right? He's a bad person. He's not the best type of prophet. He's an okay prophet. Oh, you call me an okay prophet, I'll be pretty happy. And we see what happened with her. V'lo dibra b'fanav. She didn't speak in front of him to embarrass him. She didn't say it in front of a lot of people. And she was only talking to her brother here. She wasn't like talking to Sometimes people speak Lashon Hara and they do it in public. And they say bad things about people in front of a lot of people. Like the internet. People, I don't know if you're aware of this, but on the internet, people say very bad things about people and you could ruin people's lives and businesses.
They really don't. That's not true.
Yeah, you'll be surprised in certain Facebook groups.
Social media, of course.
Yeah, if someone goes to a restaurant and the food is cold, they'll blast the restaurant on Facebook, and these people could lose their business because they made a mistake, and their whole livelihood is down the toilet. People do this all the time. You should just look in certain Facebook groups in the area. It's very common. Or don't look at them. Right, you shouldn't. But if you want to, you shouldn't look at them. But here we have Miriam was just talking to her brother. And Moshe didn't even care. He wasn't even upset about it. It says, the verse says, he was exceedingly humble. That means he just doesn't, humble people don't care if you talk badly about them. He didn't care. Zalpa Pike, nevertheless, Lohilu, it didn't help. All of her good deeds and all of that didn't help. She still got tzaras. She was still punished. So he says, Kavachaymer, all the more so, the Sharbanei Adam, regular people, Hatipshim, foolish people, Hamarvim L'davar, Gazalot, Niflos, Chavreim, Shavadi Anshoy, Zemod. So now, all the more so, foolish people that speak Lashon Hara in front of people on the internet, I added that, of course, they're going to get punished all the more so. So we take a lesson from Miriam. And I wanted to add, there's a Vilna Gaon here, we'll conclude in just a couple minutes, finish soon. The Vilna Gaon says, in Mishlei, if you want to look up, it's in Tezvav Daled 15:4, it says, the parish, Lamisha Chata B'Lashon Hara or Rechilas, Harafuahi, not that part, Shabbat D'Vitor, Ki Haruachu HaEker, Hamevi Lidei Mitzvah. There's three parts of the soul. So quickly talk about it. There's the Nephesh. The Nephesh is the animal part of the soul, the part that wants to eat cholent, the part that wants to reproduce, that we share with animals. There's the Ruach, that's the personality. That's where we have, so he says here, that also leads us to do mitzvos, our personality, our Ruach. And then there's the Neshama, that's the really part that drives us to live a spiritual life, totally dedicated to spirituality. So he says, the Vilna Gaon, that the Ruach is the main part that brings a person to do a mitzvah. And the Ruach is associated with speech. A person expresses his personality through speech. He talks to people. That's who he is. That's the I. The I is the Ruach. So, Aval HaMetzalef L'shono, he says, someone who misuses his words, who shover es Ruach, he destroys his Ruach. That's the middle level in the Neshama that wants to do mitzvahs. Ve'enu mitzava od l'dvar mitzvah. He doesn't want to do mitzvahs anymore. So he says that when a person speaks Lashon Hara, not only is he doing a sin, but it dampens his desire for spirituality. It dampens his desire to get close to God. And the opposite of that is another mitzvah that we do with our speech, which is Torah learning. Torah learning is supposed to be spoken. It's actually preferred that when one learns, even to himself, that he speaks out loud. That's why people learn out loud. Fine. I just want to go over one more quick thing, because we're talking about Lashon Hara and how important it is. I just want to go over the times you are allowed to speak Lashon Hara, because the Chavetz Chaim writes that the reason people speak Lashon Hara is because they say it's impossible. Like, I'm never allowed to say anything bad about anybody. Forget it. I'm not going to do it. So there's 7 conditions. I just want to go over them fairly quickly. The times when you are allowed to speak Lashon Hara. Right? So usually, Lashon Hara is, in general, you're not allowed to say anything bad about anybody, even if it's true. There are 7 conditions when you are allowed to say it, and sometimes it's even a mitzvah to say it. Condition number 1 is you see it yourself. Now the example that he gives there is you see somebody stole something from somebody else, and you would like to help your friend get his item back. Let's say you see somebody steal your neighbor's Amazon package. Porch pirate. Oh, if you guys get a chance, you ever Mark Rober? You ever hear him? He puts glitter bombs in packages and gets people to steal them, and he has cameras in there. He's like a NASA engineer, and he puts cameras in there, so when they open the package, the glitter goes off, and then he has fart spray, and it goes like a siren, and he actually worked with the cops. It's really funny. Okay, anyway, so you see somebody take a package from your friend's porch. So you have these 7 conditions you can tell your friend. 1 is that you see it yourself. So you didn't just hear about that this guy did this, you saw him do it. Number 2 is that you have to contemplate that what you saw was a sin. Meaning, he stole it. Because what could have happened here? Maybe my neighbor had asked someone to, take the package home, I'm going to be home late, I don't want someone else to steal it. You have to make sure that the person did a sin. 3 is that you have to rebuke the person first. If it's possible, you go to the thief, you say, hey, I know you stole the package, and before I tell anyone, I'm giving you the opportunity to return it. Number 4 is you can't exaggerate when you tell it over. You have to just say, this person stole a package. You can't be like, he came in, he kicked your car, he he stepped on your shrubs, ruined all your plants, and he took a package. You can't exaggerate. Number 5 is your intent is l'toelis. Means your intent is that you want a positive outcome. You want him to get his package back. Your intent can't be that you happen to hate the thief, and you've been waiting for years to get revenge on him, and now's your chance. If that's your intent, you're not allowed to do it. Number 6 is that you can't achieve the result without speaking Lashon Hara. Right? The only way you can get the package back is by telling somebody. If there's another way you could do it, you can't speak. And number 7 is that more damage won't befall the thief than what would happen to him in a rabbinical court. So if by you telling your friend, this guy stole a package from you, and your friend has a big mouth, and he's going to put it on Facebook, and the guy's going to lose his job, his wife's going to divorce him, his kids will never speak to him again, then you can't tell him. Right? It has to be that all that's going to happen to him is what a rabbinical court would impose on him. So those are the 7 conditions. If you want me to email them to you, I can, but there's a lot of websites that have all this stuff. And if you're interested in learning about the laws of Lashon Hara, my friend published a book a couple years ago. It's really good. It's called What Can You Say Today? He takes all of these cases about like writing negative reviews for restaurants and stuff like that, and like all these practical cases that come up, and when you're allowed to do it, when you're not allowed to do it. It's just a very good book. I like it very much. All right, any questions or comments?
Thank you.
All right, cool. Thanks for coming.
I was a little confused about the 7th condition.
Yeah.
Okay.